Welcome to the Productpreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Jelarzak, product development and marketing coach and mom of three. Learn from and get inspired by women entrepreneurs killing it in the product space. Each episode, we will share the latest trends, proven strategies, and inside secrets of the product world, all designed to give you greater confidence to create your own success through a product venture. Let's do this. Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the Productpreneur Podcast. Today, I'm welcoming a team of three amazing women who have just launched a product business together, and they're already working together as a team to leverage their unique abilities. First, I wanted to share a listener review. This one is from Mindful Mixie. Such a great podcast. I hired Nicole as my product development coach, and my experience was amazing. She guided and supported me the whole way through the creation of my product, and I couldn't have done it without her. She really knows her stuff, and this podcast is so unique in the product development field. Definitely take a listen. Totally worth it. Thank you so much, Mindful Mixie. I'm so grateful for this review, and I'm so grateful for you. Reviews like this mean so much and help others find the show. So if you can take a minute to give a 5-star review on iTunes, you'll not only make me so happy, but you'll also help others. Lastly, if you're listening to these episodes and you've got an idea burning in your head, or if you're struggling with scaling your business, or maybe you just want to talk to someone other than your spouse about your business, well, for a limited time, I'm opening up spots for a free 1-hour strategy call to help you out. You can go to NicoleDelarzak.com and book it there, or click the link in the show notes. Now on with the show. Diana Gelfand, Millie Doz and Renata Aysina are the co-founders of Skoki, a luxury children's apparel and accessories brand. Skoki is a female-founded brand led by 3 Toronto moms who are modernizing traditional children's garments for today's fashion-forward families. You'll learn about the power of launching a unique product into a specific niche, conscious fashion and why it's important to consumers, how they launched their fashion brand, the ups and downs of starting a product business during COVID, driving awareness and conversion for a premium product. You're going to love this one. Enjoy the show. Welcome, ladies. It's so exciting to have you here. All 3 of you. I can't believe it. So thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Thank you for having us.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Great. Can you tell us a little bit about how you got to launching this brand? All 3 of you. Like, it's pretty amazing that 3 of you came together. And so I'd love to hear a little bit about each of your backgrounds, how you got together, what happened there.
So basically, Renata and I are sisters-in-law. Yeah. And Milana's actually a close friend of ours. I don't know, Renata, if you want to kind of let her know how we started this whole thing off. And then
Well, I mean, the way we got the idea really is I went to Europe to visit my family, and I bought those amazing balaclavas for my kids. And I brought some for my kids, and I brought some for Diana's kids. And one day, it was just a beautiful snowy day. We bundle our babies into strollers, we put those hats on them, and we go for a walk, and we started talking about how amazing this product is, how they're made really like of quality fibers, and how they're so functional and keeps our kids so warm, and how we really can't find anything like that here in Canada, which is very odd because it's a very cold country. We have winter, half of the year is cold. Kids need hats, but they really didn't have anything similar to this to buy in Canada. So we started talking about this, and we realized there's really a gap in North American market. They don't have products like this.
No, you're right, actually. Because when I saw your product images, they were really unique. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. It's not like anything I've ever seen. Like, I see the kind of ski apparel that you wear. It's almost like a face mask. And we have the hats for kids. And sometimes they've got the ear coverings, but nothing like the balaclavas that you have. So yeah, interesting. And which country is this that you're talking about?
I'm originally from Russia, so I went to Russia and I bought them there. But really in Europe, they have them in northern countries and Nordic countries. Styles like that are very popular because kids really spend a lot of time outdoors there. So, they got to be protected. They got to get out there, have fun, play, and, stay warm. So I thought kids do the same here. Why are Canadian kids, why are we missing out? Why don't we have something for our children? So really, that's how we got the idea.
Fabulous. And when did you get this idea?
Oh, it was a long journey. It was a long journey because we have me and Diana, we both have 4 kids each.
Wow.
So
okay.
I got it, I think, for my first child, and then Diana had her babies a couple years later, and then every year we would have a baby. So we kept talking about, but pregnancies and babies, things were just, there's life. We had a lot of children. So, we had this idea for a while, but really now we're like, this is the right time. We have to do this. We really have to start.
And how old are your kids, if you don't mind me asking?
Mine are 8, 6, 3.5, and 1.
Wow. Okay. Diana?
My twins are 6.5, and then my middle child is almost 5. She's 4 for now, and my youngest is 2.
Wow, amazing. Millie, do you have any kids?
Yeah, my oldest is 8.5, and my youngest is 6.5.
Okay, so if the moms are listening out there, and you want to launch a brand, it is possible to do with kids. And look at you guys, 4 kids each, and then 2 kids, and amazing that you have the time to do this. Along with, I don't know if you work as well.
I'm a realtor, and Diana is a realtor as well. So we have our real estate careers, and we also do some work for our family businesses. So there's other work there, and there's kids, of course, are a lot of work in themselves.
Right.
I mean, any mom would know that. I don't have to talk about this, but you know what? I feel like they really give us some inspiration and some power to move forward and to do things. And I also want to say they get really excited with our successes. When my son asks me every day how many followers on Instagram we have, how many packages I have to pack, how many hats I sold. So I feel like they see this, and it's also amazing for them to see this, to see their moms actively working on something, to have this idea, to have this. They really like that. I think it's great for them to see this as well.
For sure. I think it's such a great example, and it shows them that you can create something out of nothing, really. If you want to build your own job, so to speak, or your own career or your own business or whatever you want to do, you have the control to do that. So it's such a great thing that you guys are doing. And so when did you actually launch?
We actually launched just this past September. It's really been, I would say, about a month and a half that we've actually been in market. We have been, again, on this journey, since Diana and Renata started, thinking about the idea. We've really put pen to paper for the past. It's been about a year. So they had done some preliminary work as they had been thinking through the idea and figuring out, how to start over the past couple of years. And, again, it was sort of in like this stop and hold pattern. And last, I would say September, so we got together, 3 of us. So they had actually invited me to join them along this journey and really bring this to life. That's really when we started to put the pedal to the metal, I guess you could say, and start driving the idea forward. And so, we did a lot of that pre-work, just thinking about what we want to be, who we want to be as a brand, what we want consumers to perceive us as. We had a lot of different ideas, aesthetically speaking, what the product could look like. We talked a lot about different patterns and colors and styles, and ultimately we landed on what we like to call this like elevated classic look, which really is just a small variety of colors that we felt have a really classic and timeless aesthetic. And we did want to take it into more of this luxury space, and we knew that because we wanted to have premium fabrics that we were using. We didn't want to have these synthetic blends that were available in the market, but were just not delivering that same level of quality and durability that we wanted to bring to the market. And so over the past year, I would say, we've really been working towards, again, bringing the idea to life, getting our product samples delivered, figuring out what our brand aesthetic looks like, our brand guidelines, and ultimately getting us to a point where we actually have inventory. And so we essentially started the process of launching over the past year, but really just have been in market for the past month and a half.
That's amazing. Congratulations that you've just launched, literally. And I want to mention during the time of COVID, so I'll ask you about that a little bit later. But I wanted to just talk about the product in particular. You've decided on balaclavas. Have you also thought about other children's outerwear, or are you sort of focused on balaclavas as your product?
So I think we really felt, that there was that unmet need in North America, for particularly for these premium balaclavas. And as a startup, we didn't really want to spread ourselves too thin and go into too many different categories. We wanted to hone in, really focus, build a brand and a name for ourselves, and then use that as a jumping off point for later for potential growth. So for the immediate term, we're really focused on the balaclavas as our flagship, but that's not to say that there aren't ambitions to bring more products, and product lines into our brand.
Okay, cool. That's interesting to hear. And yes, focus is definitely something that you need to do when you're just starting out, especially the amount of money spent on inventory and just getting your first production run. So it's great that you decided to focus on a niche, but you're leaving yourself open for other options as well in the future. Now, I can see that you're consciously produced, is what you say on your website. Can you tell us a little bit more about what this means to you? And also, why has it been important to you?
Absolutely. So, I mean, we look at conscious production in a couple of different ways. So, on the one hand, the wool that we use is non-mulesing and is also Ecotech certified. So, essentially, the non-mulesing means that the sheep that we are using were treated well. There is unfortunately this practice of mulesing where the farmers they cut the rears of the sheep, in order to prevent the fly infestations and parasites, and it just leaves the sheep really susceptible to infection, and it's just not very pleasant for them because oftentimes what happens is this procedure is done even without anesthetic. So it's just poor treatment of animals, which is really sad. So we
Wow.
have been just very conscious of using suppliers that actually don't use this type of practice, and that is called non-mulesing. The second thing is that our wool is Ecotech certified, which means it doesn't contain any harmful chemicals. So parents, like us, we can feel confident that our kids are not, coming in contact with any harsh chemicals. So it has that certification as well. So that's
Mm.
that's that's a part of the conscious production, and then on the other hand, we think about it from a sustainability angle. So we don't want to be producing thousands and thousands of products, and so we really have limited our quantities that we produce. So we don't, our costs therefore are definitely higher, but again, we are doing this consciously because we don't want to overstock, and have too much inventory and then have to deplete it, and potentially having it wound up in waste. So that's part of that, as well. We partner with a supplier that is also very conscious about how they produce our balaclavas. So there's actually very little waste. We asked to actually use whatever is left over, and they showed us the scraps, and it's literally scraps. Like there's nothing that we could even have done with it. But what they do is they actually upcycle and repurpose those scraps for other things, and sell it back to the manufacturer of the fabric. So it's quite interesting that it works, in that type of way, and I think it's important to us that we're actually, uh, you know, not contributing to the waste in the environment, and really being conscious about how we produce, and bring products to life and to market.
Yeah, so many things I didn't know about. And so this is super interesting. Thank you for explaining that. I have heard that there is a lot of waste in the fashion industry and that a lot of it goes to landfill. And I don't think consumers necessarily know that. So, how are you actually communicating this to people who might look at your prices and go, oh, it's higher than I would normally pay at whatever large chain store? How do you communicate this importance of being conscious about what you buy in fashion?
Basically, it's a couple of things. I mean, we really pride ourselves in the quality of the product. And you know that these all these chain stores, when you go in the stores, I mean, this kind of is it goes back to how we found the gap in the market, is that um, the balaclavas that were out there, that they had synthetic blends, there's polyesters, acrylics, all that kind of stuff. So the premium price point comes from a few things. It's what the fibers are in the product, what the product is actually made of, which again, it's 100% merino wool and 100% cotton on the inside. that's number one. I mean, also as well, I mean, these are for people that are more fashion forward, that are a little bit, you could say more focused more on style and are more style conscious, that might not necessarily purchase the things that you see at those regular retail chains. So it's people that like to shop in boutiques or some premium retailers, basically. So there is also that, and that's also why, if you look at the style of the balaclava, that's the goal, is that it's to speak to that consumer. And then of course, as Milana had mentioned, it's slow fashion, and with that you don't get the same economies of scale as you would with fast fashion. So you're not going to get the same lower price points. So it's not something that is produced at a very low price point to begin with. And again, we also have, I mean, as you've seen, there's the Luxe and the Classic collection. The Luxe does come, with European fox fur, and again, that comes to us at a premium price point as well. We try to put in, those luxury ingredients that are high quality.
Yeah, I think it's an education really to consumers who have to sort of change their buying behavior, and that can take time. But I think brands like yours are doing a great job of actually saying this is something different. This is a different way to look at fashion, and perhaps you need to think about the way you buy your clothing or all your fashion accessories, and think about who's producing it, and just ask the questions. And if you're not getting the right answers, then maybe that's not the brand for you. So good for you for sticking to your principles and your values, and I love the fact that you are really value conscious. So let's talk about your process. And there's three of you. What did you guys say? Okay, when you said, let's go ahead, let's do this, what was the first thing that you did?
So, I mean, as Millie had mentioned, we've been doing this, I guess, preparing for the launch. It's been about a year. And although Renata and I this has been mulling over in our minds for several years, over many children. Once we realized, okay, we want to go for it, the first thing actually is we asked Millie to join us, and we thought that she would make a really great strategic partner. She's got a lot of marketing experience. We all have our own experiences under our belt, but she's still in it, and she knows all the current strategies and whatnot. And we thought she'd be very value added, and she's also very style conscious and fashion forward herself. So we just thought we thought it would complement us really well. The first thing we did actually is we looked at the competitive landscape. And we wanted to make sure that although we felt there was a gap there, we looked around. We did buying trips, whatnot, went to stores, premium retailers as well, to see what's out there. What are the price points? What are they made of? What are their selling features? What are they calling out on their packaging? That kind of stuff, to really make sure that there is the proper fit for us. And the other big thing we did is we started trying to find a reputable quality, manufacturer, which is quite challenging in itself. So those were our two biggest things: was reviewing the competitive landscape, and then looking for a manufacturer that can meet our needs and our specs.
Yes. First of all, I will say that I did meet Millie once. Actually, the first time I met her was at a presentation, and she was sketching out fashion ideas. So you definitely scored in your partner. Do you know
We've seen that notebook?
Oh, okay.
I think.
And I remember her just thinking about little business ideas and what to do. And I remember she said, like, I'm going to launch something. So good for you. I'm so happy that you did. And so when you were trying to find your manufacturer, and I'm really glad that you actually did a competitive analysis of what else is out there, because that is key to know, like, how you differentiate. But when you were looking for your manufacturer, did you start off with getting a first sample, or did you make a prototype to give to your manufacturer, or did you just let that manufacturer take care of that?
When we were searching for the manufacturer, we had an idea of what we wanted it to look like. When Renata and I were first looking at this project, we did have a pattern made of the type of style of hat we would want. So we actually did have a professional pattern made, and we were able to supply them with that pattern. And also, while we were searching for these manufacturers, they showed us what their capabilities were and what sort of products they make. And that really helped us in the process, because we were able to tell if they're really able to execute this properly. Because there's a lot of, there's a sea of manufacturers, and it's very hard to decipher between what's good and what's not. And it takes experience, dealing with them and seeing what they deliver and that kind of stuff. So once we did find the manufacturer that we were really comfortable to move forward with, they did send us samples, and they were very impressive for a first round of samples. There were very minor changes that we made after that first round, but we knew at that point that we were dealing with someone who really knows what they're doing.
And how did you even find them in the first place?
Google.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Lots and lots of Google.
Yeah, because there's so
Yeah.
many, as you said, there's so many manufacturers, so it's hard to sift through what each of them does. So did you kind of send out like
Yes.
an RFQ or some kind of document to weed them down, or how did you manage that?
We didn't. It was pretty basic. We, pen to paper. We wrote up emails. We gave them photos of inspiration of the types of hats that we liked. We were very specific about what we wanted the fabrics to be made of, and that was it. And then they would just say, yes, we can make this, or no, we can't make this, or yes, we can make this. And then what they make is really not great at all. And, and it was just filtering through all the noise. But that's how we did it. We just sent them emails with photos and descriptions.
Awesome. So you're pretty resourceful. I mean, you used Google and you contacted them and received responses. Now, did you ever get any no responses, or nobody wants to do like smaller runs and they just kind of backed away because of that?
I don't think we've had any no's, unless maybe I'm free. I don't think we've had any no's, but the truth is we did have to meet certain minimum order quantities, but we were able to negotiate those down.
Good. Okay.
And that was also based on, there's other factors when you're negotiating with a vendor, how many SKUs are you launching and that kind of stuff, and how it affects their economies of scale. We did have to meet minimums, but they weren't obscene or anything crazy. And we were actually, I think, quite lucky that our manufacturer was willing to work with us, because they do have much larger clients as well, and produce a lot more for them. And I guess we just kind of hit it off, and we went with it, and they went with it. But there was a negotiation there. They didn't really produce maybe as little as we wanted, but they also did lower their minimums.
Oh, good for you for negotiating that down. That's awesome. If you don't mind me asking, are they local or overseas? Like, what were you able to find?
We really did try to find local, but the truth is, with the wool industry, like even the wool that's here, a lot of it is exported out. So our wool, a majority of it goes to auction houses, then it goes overseas. So it could travel the world until it comes back to you. And to get the kind of fabric that we needed for our wool, we were unable to find here. So we did end up having to source overseas eventually. But we tried local. We looked around. We contacted different wool suppliers. There's a wool association. We were really aiming for that here. It was very hard to find that here. We couldn't find it here.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I hear typically, that people try to find the manufacturers here, but they need to go overseas, and it's just, economies. That's the way it works. So
I mean, even when you're working with overseas, a lot of their raw goods are coming from then other countries, right? So you've got wool that can come from Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Uzbekistan, like whatever.
Yeah.
So there's Canada. So all the raw goods are still coming from a lot of different worldwide, really, and then it just comes down to a manufacturing facility that processes it and knits the fabric and whatnot.
Got it. And do you find it challenging to communicate with them in terms of communicating what you want and feedback, or how is that?
Not at all, to be honest, because we do have a lot of video chat calls as well, and they're very well established in actually in doing this. So they seem to be a lot more professional, and they have it all put together. It hasn't been an issue communicating with them. They understood what we wanted. They have their manufacturing facility. They're not a small player necessarily, so it was not an issue. They spoke English really well. There was no true language barriers. They already had the experience. It made it easier for us.
And then, so when you were preparing to launch, what did you need to do to prepare? Obviously, you needed to produce. And did you get some pre-orders or some kind of demand before you produced?
Initially, we had wanted to do pre-orders, but because we did not have our products yet, we did have some samples to work with for photography, just to kind of get things moving a little bit, but it wasn't really enough to do a proper launch. We really needed our inventory, and this year obviously has been flipped upside down like a pancake. So it was hard for us to get our inventory on time. There were delays, and that delayed everything. It was a snowball effect. So we didn't have our inventory, couldn't take our own photos. We were waiting. We're working with different manufacturers. One for the caps and one for the fur pom-poms. So there was a lot of factors at play, and there were delays because of COVID. So we weren't really able to do a proper pre-launch sale. And for us, we wanted it to be proper launch, not something that we just hack together. That's not the message we're looking to convey. So
Right.
we were unable to execute that.
Got it. Okay. And so when you launched, kind of what was your strategy for getting the awareness and building that conversion for your products? Because they are a more premium product. So you've got that to work with. And so what did you do first?
Once we got our product, I mean, we knew we had to reflect it in the best possible light. And, obviously, as you mentioned, it is premium. So we really had that playing in the back of our minds. We did a lot of brainstorming and mood boarding and trying to figure out, what is the look that we're going for? What do we like? What do we not like? And also, what can we do realistically? Because we had such a short window. We ended up getting our product at the end of August, and we knew that we had to be in market in September to try and even capture some of that, back to school thinking, and as families are preparing for fall and winter, and we were like, okay, what can we do? And we had to be realistic because, of course, we had a lot of grand ideas, but at the end of the day, there obviously are constraints, both from a timing perspective and a budget perspective. So what we ended up doing was we actually put out a casting call to our community on Instagram and Facebook, and we were able to get some really great mini models to help us bring the brand to life. We held a photo shoot in the city. We hired a photographer and a videographer to help capture those images. And once we had that and we were happy with that, we worked on developing our website. So, just a funny story about our website was that we had been working over the past couple of months with a developer, and we were obviously waiting for content because we didn't have it due to our inventory, but we weren't getting anything from him, and we decided that we couldn't wait any longer. And we ended up, over the course of probably, I think it was like 3-4 days, maybe even less, we self-taught ourselves how to develop a website on Shopify and put it out there, bring it to life. So it was a complete learning curve for us. But I guess, just the trials and tribulations of, being an entrepreneur. So that was a really interesting experience for us, but we were really proud that we were able to do it, meet our timing in terms of getting the site live. And once we had the site live, we also in the background had been reaching out to influencers just to get the message out there and, get some partnerships going. So as soon as we launched, we were able to use them to help drive that awareness and bring the message out to their communities. So that was a big part of our strategy. And since then, we, again, having very little budgets, we're trying to be very mindful of how we spend. So we have a little bit of budget that we've allocated to social media advertising and some PR as well. Again, just to really help bring our brand to life. Being a seasonal business, we have a very short window, unfortunately, even though in Canada we have a long winter, but that mentality of being in winter is also still a bit constricted. So we're just trying to push fast and furiously so that we can get the brand out there and drive that awareness.
Great. Well, I love your branding and I love the photography and video on your website. It's so adorable. So you did a great job there. And yes, you have to be resourceful as an entrepreneur. So great for you for just learning and Shopify and just getting it done. That's awesome. Let's go back to your comment about COVID. And I just wanted to touch on that because I know it has brought some challenges to a lot of businesses, but it's also brought some actual positive effects on certain businesses. So I just wanted to understand how COVID has either impacted you negatively or positively.
I think for us, the main impact was when COVID hit, we had to make a decision. First and foremost, do we launch or do we hold off? And, for us, we talked a lot about whether this was the right year, whether this was the right time. But after a lot of thinking and speaking, we decided that if we weren't going to do it, then, not launching this year would put us on an indefinite hold. We just said, okay, let's just go for it. And so we did, but of course, many impacts to our business in terms of just how we were able to liaise with partners. Under normal circumstances, we would have been able to go to trade shows and meet people in person and make those connections. And we were essentially forced to do all of that virtually. And so that pool was also constricted because we just didn't have access a lot of the time. So, I think it just forced us again to do things a little bit differently. Obviously from a cost perspective, it did impact in terms of the freight. Freight costs went through the roof as a result of COVID. So there were those implications as well. But on the flip side, as you mentioned, there are some positives. And I think especially for a product like ours, especially as families are thinking about, how are they going to spend their time? I think a lot of it lends itself really well to spending more time outdoors. And, so we feel like there's actually that benefit where we can communicate and help families, be that brand that helps them spend more time outdoors and without having to worry about being cold or, having their kids' hats fall off and their ears getting cold. So I think there's a lot of that messaging that we're actually able to amplify. And we think that it will really resonate, especially during these COVID times.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very interesting point that you made, that people will be spending more time outside, so your brand lends itself well. Also, if you look at online shopping, that's just exploded, so you're in a good space right now. And I think that people are spending their money on things that make them feel good. So luxury goods and self-care is actually a business, a segment of the market that is growing. So you are positioned in a great spot, and congrats for launching during this time, because I know that it can pose challenges on supply and freight and things like that. I think that's just amazing that you were able to do it during this time. So there are three of you. You work as a team. How do you divide your roles? Because I'm curious about how do you make it work? You're all juggling family, careers, and everything. How do you do it?
I mean, it actually, a lot of our roles kind of fell naturally to us. As we mentioned previously, we thought Millie would be a great asset, especially from the marketing and strategy perspective. So that kind of fell naturally on her lap. I have a bit of a creative background, so somehow that fell on my lap. And there's a lot more of like the technical creative stuff is kind of the stuff that I work on. I worked a lot on the packaging, the branding, the logo, like all that kind of stuff. And even creating the actual physical content for our social posts and that kind of stuff. And then Renata is really good from the logistics and from the legal standpoint. So we kind of all somehow fell into our roles almost quite naturally. And that works out really well because everything gets covered basically. But at the same time, we're also able to brainstorm together. We still have a lot of similar interests and we're able to come up with the ideas and colors and all that kind of stuff together. We generally have more or less similar style interests, if you will. And with regards to juggling mom life, I mean, it's hard, but we are really driven to work on this. This gets us excited. We're happy to work on this. And so we prioritize and we make the time. And that could just be, you base it on your own schedule. There's a lot of late nights happening. So that's how it works. Kids go to school during the day and we've got our other jobs and our mom duties, and you find the time, you just make it.
Right. And when it's a passion, you're excited to do it, and it's not really like work.
Exactly. And as you kind of gain traction, that drives you even more. You see that it's working. You see that there's positive reception, that people like the product. Even once they receive it, we've had people come back and order more. I mean, that all that kind of feedback, it keeps the drive, it keeps you excited, motivated, and you get that reinforcement that what you're doing is actually going to be well received by, the market, by the consumers.
For sure. And there's something to be said for having a partnership. There definitely you have to go into it knowing that it's almost like a marriage. But also you can feed off of each other and you each have your own strengths and you're working as a team. So that can be fun because it can be very lonely to start a business on your own. So what kind of advice would you give someone who's just starting out in the fashion business? And would you also recommend for them to look for partners, or what would you say to them?
It's not really so much advice for the fashion business. It doesn't matter what product you're launching. as long as it keeps you interested and it sparks that excitement. I think the biggest thing is don't give up. Just go for it. It's kind of a just go for it situation. There's a lot of ways for you to bring yourself down, and there's a lot of that negative feedback that you can internalize and give yourself and say it's not going to work, or someone else probably already thought about it, or they're not going to like it, or just start. Just start. And it's true for everybody, and I think everybody kind of has their moment where they just go for it. So you might have a lot of times where you're going to say no, 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 and then eventually just go for it. And having partners, I mean, in my own personal experience, I would say had been extremely helpful and motivating, because you do have those moments. And I think people that are solopreneurs, if you will, I admire those people, because it's very hard to depend solely on yourself and to keep yourself motivated. But if you ever have a down day when you've got partners, they're there, they'll have a different mood, they'll kind of get you back into it and snap you into it. So having partners you can depend on and jive well with, I think, is a huge value. Again, doesn't mean to say that people can't do it on their own. They absolutely can. I think it just depends on personality and a lot of other factors, even time. I mean, given the fact that we all have other roles in life, time alone is quite limited, and who knows how quickly we would have been able to execute had we had to do this alone. So honestly, just start. And fashion business or not, I mean, I didn't realize that I would ever start what you could call a fashion item. That was never in my head. I mean, I always thought I would do something, would not have known that this was it. So it's not about the fashion business. I think it's just about whatever gets you going and excited, and just go, just start something.
That's right. I think that many people have the itch, or they have the idea and they sit on it for a while. But you're right. It's kind of when you can't sit on it anymore is when you actually take action. And so when you're ready, you'll probably know it. You'll have this tugging feeling, and you'll feel like, okay, if I don't do it, I'm just going to regret it. And so take action and just get started. Yeah, that's great advice. And yeah, for sure, it's so beneficial to have people to work with, especially when you are an entrepreneur. So I think that's amazing that you have managed to work together, all three of you, and done so many great things. I think it's amazing. So I would love to know, what is it that you'd love to have help with? Because you've got a team of three. Is there anything that you're kind of missing? Do you feel like you have it all under control?
I think that's honestly, it's like the $1 million question. I think we don't know what we don't know, but obviously we come up against challenges all the time. And I think for us, one of the biggest ones is, how do we continue to, drive awareness with limited budgets? What are those creative things that we can do to get others to know about us? I think we're trying different things. We're trying to be creative where we can, but I think that's the big thing. We don't have, we have champagne taste and beer pockets, when it comes to this project, and we want to do big things, and we have all these grandiose ideas, but a lot of times, obviously we're constrained by budget. So I think it's just that's the big thing, and getting help on, what are those creative ideas, and I think they can come from anybody, really. So that I think for us is one of the big ones. And also, from a conversion standpoint, just being premium priced in this climate, I think that's a challenge for us, is how do we make our message even stronger, and how do we get consumers to buy in and to be comfortable spending $115 or $75 on a hat for their children. So that's always kind of, playing in the back of our minds. Those are the things that are keeping us up at night.
For sure. Well, I'm sure it's a learning process, and you'll learn as you go, and you've already done so many great things. Is there anything that you'd like to add? Any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
I think the one thing that we have actually collectively noticed is how interconnected the world has really become as a result of social media, and how I wouldn't say easy, but how much easier it has become to make connections. And even the way that you and I keep in touch through social, And, we just a small anecdote, there was a connection that we had made with somebody online who actually held some very prestigious roles in the Canadian fashion industry. She was a fashion editor. She was a spokesperson for a large premium retailer. And, she had posted something on her Instagram, alluding to the fact that she was consulting for a startup. And, we kind of talked like internally, like, oh, should we reach out to her? Like maybe she can offer some advice or just feedback, or we can bounce an idea off of her. And we're like, let's just go for it. And we ended up sending her a direct message, and she responded totally open, sent us her email, told us, yeah, no problem, like connect with me, send me an email with your questions, etc. And she was so receptive and open to just offering. Again, it wasn't like she was sitting down with us and having coffee and we were going through all of these, things, but just it was a nice gut check. We reached out to her for different things, and so I think at the end of the day, the takeaway is that there are people that are actually a lot more receptive than you would think they might be, and it really doesn't hurt to try. And especially in this world of social, where connections really are just a message away, I think it's something that is really important to remember and not to be afraid to reach out and try. So that's just something I would also leave with the listeners, and in terms of how they think about their own businesses and making those connections.
Oh, I love that advice. That's so great. I think for any type of business, just making the connections, not being afraid to reach out. And yeah, I can think of so many times whenever I've thought about reaching out and I'm like, oh, I don't know if that person would even write back, but what have you got to lose, really? They may just not write back. Fine, that's okay. But at least you know that you've made that effort and that you are making the ask. So that's perfect. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. Can you lastly tell us how people can find your products, how they can find you, and if you have anything that you'd like to offer the audience?
Absolutely. So you can find us at www.skokico.com. That's our website. And you can also find us on Instagram or Facebook. Our handle is at SkokiCo. And what we would actually really love to do, and we're really excited to do this, is offer exclusive promotion to your listeners, give everyone 10% off of their Skoki order, and they can use code podcast10 as a way to get that promotion. So we're really excited to do that.
Oh, thank you so much. So generous. Thank you. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat that, SKOKICO.com. And we'll put that in the show notes as well. Well, ladies, thank you so much. It's been so eye-opening and wonderful to hear from you and learn about your journey. I just want to wish you all the best and say congratulations on your launch. And I can't wait to see how your business grows and see all the exciting stuff that's going to be coming up for you. Thanks again.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you for listening to the Productpreneur Podcast. If you loved this episode, we'd be so grateful if you could take a sec to subscribe, share it, and review it on Apple Podcasts. Your review will help more women build their own dream product business. By the way, if you have any feedback, comments, or questions, email me at info@nicoledelarzac.com. Until next time, keep dreaming up those product ideas.